pleasant good afternoon to you from the KXAN Live studios. I'm Billy Gates, and this is the Horns Report, where we talk about all things UT athletics. And with me, as usual, KXAN Sports Director Roger Wallace. And Roger, we are going to talk about the NFL Draft for a bit. Record for the modern era, 11 players drafted from Texas. Byron Murphy and Xavier Worthy go in the first round. As we transition to the SEC next year for Texas, that kind of number kind of has to become the norm, doesn't it, in order for them to compete?
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark. 11's obviously really high. Only Michigan with 13 had more. But I think the bottom line is if you can keep it somewhere between 6 and 10 and maybe have these kind of years, you're right there competing. I think the cool part was 11 guys invited to the combine, all 11 get drafted, get their chance, and Byron Murphy going to Seattle to get things started, and that was kind of projected as the first Longhorn to go off the board. And boy, Xavier Worthy's living right, isn't he? Kansas City makes a deal to get him, so all of a sudden he's got Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball, and he doesn't have any pressure on him right away. They're so good, but. It was a good day for the Longhorns, good weekend for the Longhorns, and I think the nation took notice of the talent that's starting to come through UT.
And it wasn't that long ago where the Horns went over in the draft. It was, 3 seasons ago? Like the season before Sarkisian came in, correct? Wasn't that the year?
Sark's first year.
Yeah, Sark's first year, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have a player draft, then they had 5. Now they have back-to-back first-round picks as well with Bijan Robinson and then the 2 this year. You're looking at Jonathan Brooks. What a great story. Brooks, goes down with the ACL against TCU and still considered the top back on the board.
Yeah.
So just a lot of cool stories. A guy like Jordan Whittington who was underneath. There's A.D. Mitchell. I guess he was maybe the most interesting pick.
Yeah,
because
that was kind of where I was going to head next.
Yeah.
Were you shocked with A.D. Mitchell slipping anyway, as far as he did?
I guess if you put stock in the experts, you would say you're surprised. But
right.
Again, it's as an inexact science as you can get. But he'll get his chance with the Colts. And I know their GM, Chris Ballard, had a lot of words about, some reports about Mitchell. J.T. Sanders, you see right there. But I guess a little surprised only because all the projections, but really they had him at the very tail end of the first round. We can go down the list of guys way more surprising on how they fell in the draft.
Yeah, totally. Jonathan Brooks and J.T. Sanders getting drafted by the same team, both going to Carolina. I always think that's kind of neat that college teammates get their first shot in the NFL with the same team. Gives them kind of a bit of, sort of like a safety blanket, if you will. Like some of the same guys going there. I always think those kind of stories are pretty cool.
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, we got to realize sometimes how young they are and how, yes, this is football, but this is also a drastic change in their life. Instead of them holding the power of choosing where they go, suddenly they get picked and they're kind of on their own. Now, a lot of players, their families will move with them and help them adjust. But, to have a college teammate with you has got to be really cool. And then now you're getting the rosters big enough full of Longhorns that there's a good chance there might be a Longhorn on a lot of rosters where these guys get drafted.
Mm-hmm. And as we kind of alluded to earlier, obviously this has been a big build for Sarkisian and his staff. I mean, kind of imagine you're Steve Sarkisian right now. I mean, obviously you got to be really proud of this kind of production in the draft because it's a byproduct of what he's trying to build. They make it to the college football playoff, the semifinals there. As far as Sarkisian's concerned, kind of what's sort of like the next step that he's got to take to get this program back to where everybody thinks it should be.
Yeah, it's funny because 2 years ago you'd say, well, the next step is getting to a Big 12 championship game. Well, they took that, then they won the game, and then, oh, by the way, they got to the playoffs. So next step is competing for a national championship. Now you've got a different deal with the 12-team playoff. But, this is so important for recruiting because what does every kid want to do? They want to play in the NFL. Well, all of a sudden, Texas isn't saying we're going to have NFL draft picks. They can say we have 11 picks, second most, and you can list off all those SEC schools that did not have more than Texas. So that's just real data as far as recruiting goes and attracting talent. And now you got everything. You've got a place that's producing pros, and you've got, you can't say, well, I want to play in the SEC. I'm not sure about the Big 12.
Yeah.
They've got that too. So, I mean, it's all right there for them.
Yeah, Michigan, 13 players drafted, Texas 11. Those two teams meet second game of the season next year up in Ann Arbor. That should be a good one. And then I believe Alabama had 10 guys selected.
Yeah, it's funny. Harbaugh predicted they would break Georgia's record.
Right.
Well, he could have done that. Just draft more Michigan players with the Chargers. I think he drafted one. So he could have single-handedly made himself right on that pick.
Yeah, I believe he took an offensive lineman with like the third or fourth round pick the Chargers had. Yeah. Harbaugh just should have went just down the line.
Chalk.
Just all Michigan players.
That's right.
Oh, but no, a great draft for Texas. Obviously, it's a sign of things to come. Obviously, as a fan, you got to be pretty excited. If you're producing this many pros, then you're going to be pretty good at the college level. So, I mean, from a fan standpoint, this got to be pretty great.
I don't know what right now, I don't know what Texas fans would be complaining about. They've got a quarterback who's projected to be a first-round pick next year in Quinn Ewers. They've got a left tackle that's projected maybe a top 10 pick in Calvin Banks. Yes, there are going to be question marks on the defense, but as far as what you know now, that this staff is capable of getting Texas right there in the hunt for the national championship. Just see how it works out. Everybody needs some luck along the way. It's not always just being the best team, but got to avoid injury. You got to get some bounces go your way and avoid some bounces going the other way. But as far as just the way this program looks right now, there's really not a whole lot to not be excited about if you're a Longhorn.
That's true. That's right. Now we're going to head to baseball. No, softball is what we have on next. So there's I'm producing and talking at the same time, and it's hard to do.
Like flying a plane here.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm trying to pat my head and run my tummy at the same time.
But if you mess up, we're still safe.
Right, yeah. It's not as risky as flying a plane. So let's see if they got, there we go. No, there's softball. Anyway, I really like this picture. Let me just bring that up. I just really like that picture. I just wanted a reason to use it. So anyway, there we go. So there's some softball photos from when they played Oklahoma here in town. The softball team is incredible. Won 13 straight games. They're a game behind Oklahoma, which that makes that Houston loss at the beginning of the season look incredibly weird. It looks weirder by the hour. And they're still getting behind Oklahoma, but they've done a tremendous job this season.
They've got a chance because they go to Tech. Tech is 5 games under 500, so it's not ridiculous. I think Texas has a great chance of sweeping. Then Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play Bedlam, and if Oklahoma loses one and Texas sweeps, they've got at least a share of the title. They're the top seed. If Oklahoma State wins the series, then Texas can afford a loss in Lubbock and still get at least a share of the title, or obviously win it outright with a sweep over Texas Tech. But I think now it's almost to the point, you want another title. I mean, Texas now with the men's golf, that's 11 Big 12 championships in their farewell tour, so a chance to make it 12. But they're going to be a top 8 seed. We've talked about this each of the last 3 Mondays. I think they're going to be a top 8 seed, so they're going to control things right through McCombs Field all the way to Oklahoma City. It's just a matter of they can avoid any bumps along the way and stay healthy through this last weekend, and then the Big 12 tournament. And, they used to not have a Big 12 softball tournament. They went back to playing that Big 12 tournament.
Well, and now they get to have it at that palace that OU built.
That's right.
That Loves Field. It's just a tremendous softball facility where they also have the Women's College World Series every year. So, everything runs through OU literally. The past 3 years they've won the national title, and they actually play there for the national championship.
And it's hard to argue the way they support that tournament. So I think that kind of like Omaha, the way it's set up for college baseball, I think that's a great setup for softball. So again, I'm sure Longhorn fans want to kind of fast forward and get to the tournament and see if they can get through a super regional and get back to the World Series and see what happens.
Reese Atwood, sophomore catcher, broke the single-season RBI record last weekend against Iowa State. She now has 70 RBIs this season, broke a record set in, I believe, 2014 of 66. and she's a homer away from tying the program record for home runs in a season. She has 17. The record's 18. It would be pretty fitting if maybe she didn't homer in Lubbock, but then came back for the regional tournament and went nuts to break the record at home. But I'm sure, well, one, I'm sure she doesn't care about the record. She just wants the team to win. But obviously, if you're hitting home runs, then you're helping your team win. But she's just had an outstanding year.
Safe bet the wind will be blowing in Lubbock. Just
Yeah.
not sure what direction
Right.
in relation to the softball field. But, yeah, she'll certainly get plenty of cracks at it.
Yeah. All right, and with the baseball team, I honestly don't know what to think of the baseball team. To be honest with you, they look really good one moment, and then the next moment they leave something to be desired. But
they're consistent.
They're finding, yeah, they're consistent in their inconsistencies.
Thursday and Friday is not their day.
No.
Weekends, they were made for the weekends.
They are made for the weekends. They beat Oklahoma in a doubleheader yesterday. Second game shortened due to rain. They win that series. Oklahoma's leading the conference. They still are by a game, but Texas made up some ground. Texas sits at fourth in the Big 12, a game behind West Virginia and Oklahoma State, which they play Oklahoma State coming up, I believe.
This weekend.
Yes, this weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Max Ballou, 16 home runs on the season. He hits 2 homers against OU in the nightcap to push them over the top 12-10. Once they get that pitching figured out, it kind of seems like their offense is there. It's that pitching piece is what they got to really try to get right before they get to the postseason here.
Yeah, I said after last night, this may be the most puzzling team in the nation. When you think about what they've done, they've lost one Big 12 series to BYU of all teams.
Right.
They win road series at Texas Tech, at Kansas State, at Oklahoma, but their RPI is so low right now that they still have a lot of work to do unless they can make a run. I think it's still in the 60s. But it's a team that can mash. They hit 5 2-run homers, 4 in consecutive innings against Oklahoma, and they sweep a doubleheader to win a series. You just don't do that on the road.
No.
It's so difficult to do, and they did that. And so, yeah, I don't know what to think. If they can get 2 out of 3 from Oklahoma State, those are big RPI games as well. And then they go to Central Florida and end it with Kansas. But still, I think D1 and Baseball America will probably have them in this week as a 3, which means the lowest, one of the last teams in if you're a Power 5 as a 3 seed. So work to do.
Yeah.
But now with 2 out of 3 against Oklahoma, if they can figure out how to win a game on Friday or Thursday in the case of the last series against Kansas, maybe they can get themselves into that final weekend with a chance to sneak in there and maybe grab a piece of the regular season title.
Yeah, they could certainly use a sweep. That's for sure. And it's like what I thought beginning of the season is that kind of the other way around. Like I thought their pitching was going to be what carried them through the season with LeBaron Johnson, Charlie Hurley coming back, Tanner Witt starting to get healthy, but none of that really materialized. I mean, now we're getting Ace Whitehead, Max Grubbs, Gage Boehm out of the bullpen, guys that maybe folks outside of the program weren't really thinking about. They're just seeing kind of those big names. But now, I mean, it's this team's offense that's really sort of carried the torch.
Yeah, and then take a guy like Cade O'Hara. He starts the season as a backup shortstop, and he pitched big innings in Game 1 on Sunday and ended up getting the victory. And still, LeBaron Johnson just quite hasn't gotten it figured out, or he's been figured out, depending on how you look at it. And they got bad luck in the portal. They had a kid from Duke, Luke Storm, who was going to be their first baseman, big power-hitting guy, and he decides to step away from baseball. Will Mercer, a pitcher from Notre Dame, pitched in the College World Series. He's not with them. So they've had a few guys, and they've hit on the portal really well since David Pierce in college baseball kind of went that route. And then you think about 2 portal guys that you thought would be kind of mainstays in Porter Brown and Jack O'Dowd. Porter Brown's kind of hanging in there, almost become a platoon player in left field and DH, and Jack O'Dowd's, basically maybe if they need a left-handed DH. So, some things haven't worked out, but you look up and they're still right in the race. Now the Big 12's down. Let's not kid
Sure,
ourselves.
right.
Nobody's ranked higher than Oklahoma State. I think OU dropped somewhere to 19. Not sure about
Yeah.
Oklahoma State, but there's still a chance. And you know, hosting a regional seems like it's off
No,
the page
yeah,
unless they
that's-
run the table and win the Big 12, and even then, I'm not sure if they can get that high.
Yeah.
But you know, I just want to get in the tournament and see what happens.
So they've got a midweeker Tuesday against Sam Houston.
Yep.
I mean, they've had so much trouble with midweek games. That's why their RPI is kind of in the tank, because they've lost to UTRGV. They've lost to
A&M Corpus Christi.
A&M Corpus Christi. That Texas State loss still hurts, even though Texas State's still a decent program.
But lost twice to them.
Yeah,
Once
lost
in,
twice to them.
in
Yeah.
Houston. Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're able to take care of Sam Houston, at least that's not going to put them even further behind the 8 ball.
Right.
And then they've got the big series with Oklahoma State coming up.
Yeah, and there's still a lot. Like 3 more series. That's 9 games. You're talking about things could go really well one way, or things could go south in another way if they don't become a little bit more. They're really consistent, but boy, you're living on the edge when you keep putting yourselves in a position where you got to win the second 2 in a series in order to win the series. So their margin for error right now, based on the numbers, still seems pretty small when you're looking at the 64-team field.
Yeah, no, it's tough to win every game 12-10. Like you're not always going to smack 6 home runs in a game, tie a program record in consecutive weeks, by the way. Like that was crazy to me.
Yeah.
Was they've been able to hit the ball out of the park with that sort of consistency.
Tied a school record that the last time it happened was 1998, and they did it twice in 5 days, Tuesday and Sunday, and that's hitting 6 home runs in a game. So, I mean, you know, you find different ways to win it. You're right.
Yeah.
Texas fans have been used to, you know, great pitching and that timely hitting, and occasionally you get an Ivan Melendez or a Cody Clemens. But this is a different animal, and they're just trying to hang on and find ways to scratch out victories.
Well, I think Steve Rodriguez, assistant coach, he said it best when talking with the media after Dave Pierce took an early shower during that last home series where he got asked to leave by the umpires. He said that just the team's fight has just been there all season, and when you're trying to overcome 5 errors like they had against Oklahoma, when you're trying to overcome the pitching difficulties they've had, you've got to have that fight. You have to have that resolve, and obviously that's shown through. That's kind of where they've been most consistent to me, anyway.
Yeah, and the game 2, we talked so much about that game 3 Sunday night, but game 2, Ace Whitehead does not have his best stuff. He gets knocked around. You figure, okay, well maybe it's finally caught up with him, and they're not gonna win that game 2. And then I mentioned O'Hara, and then Gage Bain comes in the last 7 outs to get Texas to the win. So again, finding ways, finding guys. Luke Harrison came up with a big strikeout. That guy's really struggled. He got a big strikeout yesterday in a 3-run game with 2 on. They're waiting for David Shaw. They're hoping this is a guy that at some point can help them. Andre Duplantier certainly had his moments where he's been good, and he's struggled giving up home run balls. So they've all got it in them, but they've all, the confidence, you can see it kind of creep in when things don't go well, because they've all had those moments this year when things haven't gone well.
Well, it's certainly going to keep us on the edge of our seat. That's for sure. We have no idea what's going to happen. Just sort of living in the moment with the baseball team. We'll see how they do the rest of the season. See Tuesday against Sam Houston State. And then they have Oklahoma State at home for 3. And that should tell us a lot about how the Big 12's going to shake down in their final season in the conference. Well, that'll do it for this installment of the Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you tuning in. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.